Hello, welcome to another edition of Birth of a New Dimension. I'm your host, Aurora, and today on this 1-hour exploration into higher dimensional consciousness, I would like to speak about boundaries dissolving and the use of cannabis as a sacrament and as a healing tool for healing, and how our society needs to change its value system from one that is based in competition to one that is based in cooperation, and how all of that relates to what I was speaking about in last week's broadcast, which was all about Agartha, or inner earth. Okay, so last week I was speaking about inner earth, and to make a distinction, you get to inner earth not by taking a shovel or an axe or a bulldozer and smashing through the crust of the earth. That's like saying the way that you get into my house is by taking a chainsaw and sawing through the wall and then coming inside. That is not how you get in there. There are apertures or portals through which one enters into the realm of inner earth. So I invite you all to place your literalism to the side as we begin to discuss these topics, because many people have literally interpreted various stories and myths that you can fly or sail literally into another world that is in the interior of the crust of the physical realm. And it is much more accurate to envision these two realms as overlapping, non-coincident planes. Places where we could theoretically occupy both places, but there are not the apertures or entrance ways and exit ways to get into and out of those realms. And I used the example of city traffic in a place like Los Angeles, where you can either take the extremely laborious and long city streets, or you can take the freeway. And if you take the freeway, you hop up and over a lot of the difficulties and obstacles of the city streets. And if you enter into your car at your home, take the freeway to your destination and never get out or stop at any place along the way, you have essentially maintained your own frequency. You have not had to interact with the frequency of any of the other people that are on the city streets. So this is very analogous to how the Agarthans exist and do not interact or interact minimally with Earth surface human culture. And you now understand why I make this distinction. Why don't I just say humans or earth inhabitants? Because I am impeccable with my language. And impeccable literally means without sin, but here I am using it in the sense of being extremely accurate, because words are powerful and words are vibration. So when I am speaking about earth surface human culture, for example, I'm not speaking about dolphin culture, not speaking about elephant culture, not speaking about feline culture, either domesticated or wild, and I'm not speaking about, let's say, the plant kingdom or the mineral kingdom. I am only speaking about earth humans who are running the particular operating system that we know as the human mind, and which I have said in many times in the past is a hacked operating system. So Agarthans, by the definition of what is human, might not even appear to be human to you, even though their appearance is humanoid, meaning they have a body that has one head and 2 arms and 2 legs and 2 eyes. However, the size of their body might be very different than your body. And here's the kicker. The functioning of their bodies is different than the functioning of your own body. And this is very similar to my own change in the cellular organic structure of the body that I wear. If I haven't introduced myself yet in this episode, and if you are completely new, I am a walk-in. That means I am a new inhabitant to the physical cellular structure of this earthly human form. The original mental or consciousness inhabitant left when their ego was destroyed on October 8th of 2001 during what was both a psychic attack and a biological event. And the totality of the event I describe in my YouTube called Aurora's Story Walking In. And if you'd like to go into it, it's a 40-minute long story, so I won't use this entire hour-long broadcast to speak about it. But I bring it up because the relevance is my consciousness is stellar, or the energetic frequency, or the vibratory rate, or the quote-unquote dance that I'm doing on a vibratory rate is stellar. Now, I will also tell you, as I spoke about last week, I'm letting this information out more and more, the origins of human consciousness on Earth are also stellar. So it is accurate to say, oh yes, Aurora, we are all immigrants to this planet. It's like saying, here in North America, it's like saying that you're an immigrant. Of course you are. Almost everyone, except for the original Native American inhabitants who came here thousands and thousands of years ago, is an immigrant. However, some people have come here more recently, like a person who came within the past 5 years has a very different experience than a person whose family might have come here 100 or 200 years ago. There is a difference in the sense of being submerged and acculturated. So my consciousness is a stellar consciousness that did not come to Earth thousands of years ago and become acclimated through many, many lifetimes and incarnations, although I have lived in earthly human forms many other times and other times on Earth. The main reason for me to tell you this is that the energy of my consciousness had to integrate with the physical form of the physical cells. So the cells that I moved into were vibrating at a lower rate than they needed to. And the transition of putting higher dimensional consciousness into a lower dimensional physical container was a difficult, we could even say harrowing or challenging experience. And it didn't just take one day, it took many years, and the process is still ongoing. And why do I bring this up? The process of hybridization, or bringing together these two divergent vibratory frequencies and wavelengths. Because my body as a container for consciousness had to change in order to accommodate this higher vibration. And my body, even though I might look very similar to other Earth surface humans, and I would call myself humanoid, I often do not describe myself as human because my body functions differently now. And the difference in function has to do with the rate at which consciousness is expressed or manifested into the physical realm. So, all of you, all Earth surface humans, are always, constantly manifesting your state of health or disease. The question is, how instantaneous is that manifestation? For many people, the time between a thought, that is a disease-causing thought, and the manifestation of that particular disease can be many years. And for my own experience now, and for many people who will come into this vibratory rate, what I think about my body and believe about my state of health is almost instantaneously evidenced or manifested in my physical body. And another way in which my body functions differently, even though I might look similar to others, is that I need to ingest sunlight. I ingest physical food, which sustains my physical cells, but my physical cells and my consciousness also ingest pure sunlight. as nourishment. And so many people might experience this, at your lower vibratory rate, you might still feel when you get out in the sun and you get a tan that you have more energy. Or when you get out in the sun and you get a tan, that you have more of an appetite for certain foods, like maybe, a nice fresh salad or a fresh fruit salad, food that is raw and cold and uncooked. These are little tiny experiences of what I experience. So when I get out into the sun, not only does my skin change color, that's actually one of the minimum changes that I experience. First of all, I get energy directly into my cells, like directly into the mitochondria of my cells, without the intervening ingestion of, substances into my mouth that have to go into the gut bacteria and produce free radicals and be digested. I don't have to go through what I call the rigmarole. The energy goes directly into my cells. And the consciousness energy goes directly into my consciousness. So I don't have to refine out consciousness from, let's say, the dead flesh of a cow. That cow used to be conscious. It used to be chewing grass and mooing, and now it's dead, and its consciousness is in its flesh, and I put that flesh into my stomach, and then I refine out that consciousness. I don't have to do that as much in order to get the levels of consciousness that I require to do things like do this radio broadcast. So where do the ideas from this radio broadcast come from, and my artwork and everything that you'll find on my website, which is flyingrainbowlasagna.com, and you can check out my semester Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, even though at this point the train has left the station and it's a little bit hard to catch up. We are more than 3 months into the semester. But these ideas and the energy for them comes from direct solar insight without the intermediary of chewing up physical objects. And this is beneficial to me because A, chewing up the physical objects creates byproducts. These are the free radicals, or the, if your body is being used like a steam engine, this is like the soot and the steam that comes out the other side, the caloric heat output and carbon dioxide and the wear and tear that it has on your cellular body. I don't have that level of wear and tear, so it means the aging process is diminished, and also it's like having a huge upgrade in the amount of power that I have available to me. Just running on food, I was not able to get enough energy in order to run my higher psychic faculties. So in order to run those higher faculties, let's say it's like a computer that uses up a lot of electricity or energy out of the wall, you have to have more energy available to you. So these are just some of the ways in which my body doesn't function as the body did before I underwent this transformation. Brief pause. So the Agarthans and their bodies and their society run a lot more similarly to the way that my body runs. I am here in this realm really as a fish out of water. I often tell the story when I first came into this body, I was trying to just subsist entirely upon sunlight. I did not understand the necessity of having to eat physical food, and I didn't understand why my body felt weak and couldn't do things and was very slender, and I had to learn you got to eat physical food. And then once I learned about that, then I had to learn about the qualitative differences of nutrition and physical food. Well, okay, last week in my broadcast, I established that the Agarthans are like the last surviving cultural and consciousness outpost of the antediluvian culture that was here. Antediluvian meaning pre-flood, before the cataclysm. This is what is remembered in only a hazy mythological sense of once upon a time, in a time long ago. A mythological realm that was actually not mythological, was actually a advanced, sophisticated worldwide culture where in that world, first of all, the human body and the human genetics had not yet been degraded. So everyone had a direct connection to higher consciousness. It was normal to have a photographic or perfect memory. The idea of having to write things down in order to remember them is a compensatory method, like a crutch, in order to get around the fact that your computer doesn't work properly. If I put information into my MacBook and then I went to look for that information later and it wasn't there, I'd say, my computer's broken. We better bring it to the computer store and get it fixed because I know I put that information in there. And yet, to people in this time and place on Earth's surface, human culture, that's normal. What? You told me your phone number and I forgot it? That's normal. That happens all the time. It's because your computers don't function the way they are meant to function. And I've also spoken about how humans did not age at their present rate and could choose when they died. Because truly, infectious disease had not been invented yet. Infectious disease is a byproduct of your chakras being bent askew and your genetic code, instead of existing in a multi-dimensional, like not only three-dimensional, but fourth-dimensional and fifth-dimensional and higher state, being flattened out, much like a bouquet of flowers being squashed flat so that it can be slid under a door. Yes, the flowers got into the room. Yes, the bouquet is in the room, but that bouquet lost something in translation. And so too is it with your genetics. Your genes are meant to be a code that is like vibrating strings that are dancing in complex arabesque forms. And instead of that, your genes have been dumbed down to a more linear format that has fewer possible combinations available to it. And what I'm here with the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is to pop your genetic code back into the higher dimensional format, like a pop-up book. The Flying Rainbow Lasagna. If you don't know what it is, look at my website, look at the banner for the UCY homepage for Birth of a New Dimension. Check out my YouTube channel, Flying Rainbow Lasagna, where you'll find an animation that I did called The Conception of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And that is my best current rendering of the motion of energy that creates the lasagna shape, in much the same way that a tornado is made out of the whirling and twirling movement of air and water vapor or atmosphere swirling amidst itself. Your chakras, or energy centers, and the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is made out of the whirling and twirling motion of consciousness or awareness or non-physical energy whirling and swirling amidst itself. And first of all, just looking at the Flying Rainbow Lasagna inoculates you. You have been initiated or inoculated into the idea that we can now seamlessly integrate or combine the previously delineated or separated realms of the inside versus the outside. So let's get into this. Inside versus outside. This is the creation of ego. And your ego and what you define as self is radically going to change as we become telepathic. Yes, because your sense of self is derived from your boundaries. And I said at the introduction, I was going to do a little bit of work on this topic about boundaries dissolution and cannabis. Cannabis as a mild psychedelic. So I'm so lucky now that I have relocated to California from New York State. I've always been a huge proponent and advocate for the use, and especially consciousness-raising use and health-cultivating use of cannabis. I used to be limited in my free expression because I lived in a state where it was illegal. That is because we are coming out of the Dark Ages. Enlightenment of the 19th century? Ah ha ha ha, I laugh, I drop my monocle. No, we never came out of the Dark Ages. The so-called Enlightenment of the era of, rationalism and objective materialism has really just been more bars on the cage of your consciousness. And we are only now coming out of that era and recognizing the way in which humanity's consciousness has been severely limited. So some of these mental bars on the cage are necessary stages of development, but you have to be willing to let go of what no longer serves. So like when you're a little tiny child, you have training wheels on your bicycle, then you get good at balancing and you no longer need your training wheels. And none of this is to cast aspersions, but just to say that making a distinction between you as an individual and the rest of the world is a necessary level of inner development. Each one of us goes through this level of development in infancy or early childhood. And I mean, my journey is different because I am a walk-in, but I'm making generalizations here. And I'm stating that each one of us has gone through an experience of saying, hey, when I use my senses and I touch my toe, I can feel that that's my toe. But when I touch the wall, I can feel that that is something other than me. Or I touch my bed or the pillow or my shirt, and I feel those are things that are other than me. Through our senses and eventually, the visual sense, we make this distinction of self versus non-self, of inner versus outer. And the story that we tell ourselves is, I'm this person, like this is the development of ego. So I developed my ego in chronological adulthood when I came into this physical body. So I didn't have the issues that an infant has in terms of muscular coordination, but I had the issues of having to determine, who am I? What are my preferences? What's my favorite color? Do I choose this color or this color? All of these things, we determine a sense of self based upon your senses, your experiences, and your preferences. And you say, within this envelope that is created by the epidermis of my skin, I am this being, and I call myself this, and here's my life story, and here's who I am and what I've been experiencing for the past X number of years. And that continuity of consciousness, however X many number of years you can remember, is what you call your lifespan. And of course, most people do not remember their early infancy. Most people do not remember who and what they were in previous or concurrent lifetimes. Unless, let's say, you're the 17th Karmapa. This very special individual has been cultivating their mind and their consciousness over more than 17 generations. And so, when they die or remove consciousness from their physical container, they maintain continuity of consciousness. Just like a lucid dreamer is able to maintain continuity of consciousness, staying focused as they descend into dreaming, being aware that they are dreaming, and then ascending out of the dream state with a full memory of what they have experienced. This is what high-level meditators are able to do between lifetimes. These cultivators of inner consciousness have developed the skills necessary to maintain coherence between lifetimes. And that allows them to have an expanded perspective. For example, you would say, I'm not just this person here wearing this body and this suit of clothes at this time. I was also this person at this time and this person at this time. Brief pause. So the theme is continuity of consciousness is one aspect of boundary dissolving. Instead of having paginations or page breaks between lifetimes, you have a seamless continuum of consciousness. Now let's talk about telepathy and seamless continuum of consciousness as experienced through telepathic communication. So telepathy would be direct mind-to-mind communication. And when we begin to have these experiences, we dissolve the boundaries of what we considered self, because we see that many of the thoughts and insights that one experiences within the boundaries of your own epidermis, within your own sovereign realm, actually arise from or originate from somewhere else. If you say, I am currently thinking thoughts or speaking words that are being broadcast to me from elsewhere. So first of all, ceasing to identify with one's thoughts. Hey, that sounds a lot like what the practice of meditators do. In the process of consciousness cultivation, we cease to identify with our thoughts. We say, those are thoughts that are just passing through. Just passing through. You can do the same thing with like food. You know something? I ate an orange this morning, but it's just passing through. Most of that orange is going through my alimentary tract and will eventually be ejected. But of course, some aspects of the nourishment remain with me. Some aspects of the nourishment are refined and utilized. So too is it with thoughts. Thoughts are conscious entities that pass through our either minds or states of awareness or systems of perception. And we derive nourishment from those thoughts, and we also give nourishment to those thoughts. Kind of like if you could envision a spinning top where it spins over to you and you give it a little bit of a spin and send it on its way. This is what the process of thinking is. Thoughts present themselves to you as living entities to reside for a brief amount of time within your organic computer and then to be rebroadcast and circulated back out into the realm. When you look at the world in that way, you see yourself not as an individual entity and an individual thinker thinking, quote unquote, your thoughts, but you see yourself as a node or like one little light on a string of many little Christmas lights or sparkling, twinkling lights. And that network of thought is a cosmic network of thought. It is not only on your planet or within your species, it is across time and across all space. That's why I say cosmic, because it is not limited to this particular universe. It is consciousness in every encapsulated bubble that exists. And an encapsulated bubble would be like an expansion of time or a particular, delineated universe. Now let's talk about current human Earth surface society. So Earth surface human culture, which values the ego so much, which considers people who do not develop boundaries to be socially aberrant. Yes, there are people who, have different wiring and different perception. And if you do not toe the line or conform to the social consensus of this barbarian society, you are considered socially aberrant. And when I say barbarian society, the definition of barbarism is only the strong shall survive, and to the victor goes the spoils. And that is the value system that has been promoted in Earth surface human culture pretty much for the amount of time that you as humans have continuity of consciousness. So just in the same way you can have continuity of consciousness between lifetimes, you can have continuity of consciousness between cultures. Like a culture arises, comes to heights of sophistication, and then devolves or falls, and then a new culture arises. And if you have continuity of consciousness, you remember, oh yeah, remember that old culture thousands of years ago? After they fell, we took their language and we changed it into our culture. That's continuity of consciousness. Human consciousness only starts remembering, kind of about 5,000 years ago. It does not remember very far before that. doesn't mean that things weren't happening. It just means that there's lack of continuity. It's like saying, when I woke up this morning, I rubbed the sleep dust out of my eyes and I got out of bed, but I didn't remember what I had just been dreaming about. Where was my consciousness right before I got out of bed? I don't remember. So humanity doesn't remember where its consciousness was or what it was doing before roughly 5,000 years ago. And it was doing much more interesting things than it has been doing for the past 5,000 years. Humanity was in a much more sophisticated state and was unceremoniously, almost instantaneously dumped down into levels of degradation. And humanity remembers that time in a very hazy mythological way as the good old days, or a golden era, or in biblical literalism as the Garden of Eden. And the consciousness of this Garden of Eden would be described as oceanic, or not delineated, not segregated. There was not a distinction made between you as an individual and the context within which you were submerged. So in the biblical myth, it speaks about how Adam could speak with, or Adam, the proto-man or human, could speak with the other animals and gave them all names. And this is very similar to the type of interconnectedness that human consciousness experienced before, quote-unquote, the fall of consciousness in this antediluvian sophisticated culture. Where, first of all, as I've been speaking to you and telling you that I am in transition, I am a hybrid, I wish I could eat nothing but pure sunlight, but I also eat physical food. It's not that I don't like physical food, believe me, but all I can say is that we expend a great deal of energy in the procurement of, eating of, preparation of, and cleaning up after of food. Like literally, we do a lot, many hours all day long in terms of getting food, making it, cleaning it, eating it, and pooping it out. And it is very freeing when you can get your energy directly from solar consciousness and not have to go through the intermediary system. However, while I am here in this format, I embrace eating solid food. Believe me, people who live with me and who know me, they know I'm a taste bud on the tongue of God, and I eat beautiful raspberries and fruit juices and send them, in a digitized format, send the experience of it to higher consciousness, because it's wonderful to have a tongue and have these sensations. And I also recognize that I will not always require these substances, and at a certain point, I will no longer have to make something else die or no longer have cellular life so that I can maintain my own cellular life. This is one of the trade-offs that humanity has had to experience because of the reduction of your consciousness. When the culture of Atlantis was reduced and you could no longer connect directly to sunlight, found that you had to eat other creatures and plants. How difficult that is. Well, in that setting, it wasn't difficult because you didn't remember who you were, and you simply did what you needed to do. But it would have been a lot more difficult. We knew all of the animals personally. It's a lot more difficult to eat someone when you know them. It is, like eating a pet. It's a form of cannibalism almost. It's very, very difficult. And let me just put out there, the levels of abuse and exploitation to which animals are subjected in this current time and place on Earth's surface human culture is almost unimaginable to the beings that currently inhabit Agartha and to some of the higher dimensional, less dense realms, the beings of that realm. Hey, you know something? I am not a vegetarian. I tried to follow vegetarian dietary practices and found that I was not getting enough protein for what my physical structure needed, and that I literally could not consume the volumetric amounts of plant available proteins were larger than the size of my stomach and intestines could comfortably contain. So I found with this particular human body, it is necessary for me to have the concentrated protein available in flesh. And that's a tough one because, I'm connected in telepathic rapport to these higher dimensional beings from less dense realms. And we joke, they used to try to make me be a vegetarian, and they used to be horrified that I was going to eat some dead cow as my dinner. And eventually, so this is what my life is like, I came to a détente, or we have an understanding between us that this physical, earthly human container requires meat on a regular basis, and that if the higher dimensional beings are offended by the sight or smell or sensations of, the dead flesh that I work with, they just don't tune into my experience on that night. And I grill my meat outside so that my home doesn't smell like residual dead flesh. I am bringing this up as a relatively, lighthearted characterization of how very differently one perceives the world from different perspectives. I think hamburgers are delicious. I love to eat them. And P.S., I eat humanely raised, grass-fed beef and humanely raised chicken and eggs. There is definitely a qualitative difference to animals that have lived their lives in fear and darkness and unconsciousness and been killed in horrible, inhumane ways than there is of animals that have lived decent, comfortable lives and then were killed as humanely and quickly as possible. So, yes, I do eat animals, and when I eat them, just like I do with all of my nutrition, I sanctify it with my lips. I bring it to a higher dimensional state by wedding the consciousness that is in that substance to my own consciousness. And this is a divine way of eating. How do we do this? Oh, well, the first thing is I thank the origins of these nutritional substances. Thank you to the plants and animals that gave me their flesh so I can eat them. Thank you to the creator who created these beings so that I could eat them. And then I don't eat in a distracted way. I don't eat generally, or try not to, in front of the TV. I try to taste my food and really enjoy it and respect it. And I don't eat over the sink. I put it in a plate and sit down with a knife and a fork and even a little napkin. I make it look as beautiful as it looks on Food Network. This is how we turn the mundane activity of chewing up objects and putting them into our alimentary canal into a divine, esoteric, magical experience of raising physical objects to higher dimensional states. Of course, doing this, we acquire some amount of karma, and I'm a walk-in, so my rules for that are a little bit different. But now I want to contrast this with the Agarthans. So the Agarthans, the last surviving outpost of the culture that was Atlantis, most of those beings don't have to eat physical food. Their bodies work and function differently than most of your bodies. And the Agarthans retreated or created a protected bubble of consciousness through which satanic consciousness could not disrupt their thinking process. So when I say satanic, this is crucial. We need to make this distinction. There are extraterrestrial beings and extra-dimensional beings who are not merely darkness, but who are darkness that wants to stay dark. This is the difference. There's a balance of light and dark in the world. And the balance within ourselves is there's areas of darkness or ignorance, and as we learn and grow, those areas come to light. That's beautiful. That's divine. What is not divine is areas of darkness that refuse to come to light. Areas of ignorance that wish to stay ignorant. Areas of lack of awareness that stick their fingers in their ears and say, la, 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 I don't want to listen, I want to stay ignorant. That is what I am categorizing or using the vocabulary word satanic. All right, that it's not a particular race, it's not a particular species. It is a mindset and a value system. And we can see this value system expressed across the board in semi-corporeal or non-corporeal consciousnesses, in manifested corporeal consciousnesses, in belief systems and social structures. So the challenge, the revolution of consciousness that we are experiencing here, people often talk about the light workers, light versus dark. First of all, we're blasting through the doors of perception by resolving duality. When we dissolve boundaries, as we do when we use psychedelics, we resolve duality. We resolve this whole rigmarole of us versus them, me versus not me, light versus dark. These distinctions are useful to make so that we can learn about the world. Like I can learn about the world by making a distinction of the edge of this object versus where the air begins, where this object ends and where the atmosphere begins. That is a valuable distinction to make. But if I really get to the point of truth, I understand that both the atmosphere and that object are a sea of vibrating molecules, that edge does not really exist, and that everything that we see is a sea of vibration. That is what the fifth dimension is also. Let us all be impeccable in our language. Many people are very sloppy and they talk about, oh, we're going into the fourth dimension. Oh, we're going into the fifth dimension. Please, use your words with consciousness, because words have power. So we are not going into the fourth dimension or the fifth dimension. We are already submerged within those dimensions. We might be becoming aware of the aspects of self that are in those higher dimensional states. And if I can describe it briefly, but I did record a whole teaching about this and have a whole lesson for full spectrum humans about it. If we say that the third dimension, this is like a boxcar, like one car in a long line of cars that makes up a train, all right? And each moment or packet of time is like a train car, okay? Or like each moment is like a slice of bread. And the French bread of your life is like the timeline of your life, with one end of the bread being your birth, and then all the slices being your life, and then the other end being your death. And so you see, you're already in the fourth dimension. Every moment of your life is a slice of that bread. And the fifth dimension is the bakery where the bread is made. Because that bread is a life experience, but it is made of uncollapsed waveforms. A sea of probabilities and possibilities that are not yet even train cars, quote unquote, or pieces of bread that you can slice and eat and put delicious butter on. These are possibilities. To say that a being exists at the fifth dimensional state is to say that they perceive the various possibilities and probabilities of the tapestry of time before or at the same time that it is actually being experienced as consciousness. And I also use the analogy, if your life is like an old-fashioned film, like a physical film on physical cellulose, film strip, as opposed to a digital film in a format on a USB thumb drive. If you unspooled that movie reel and laid it all out on a big flat table so that you could see the first frame of your life and the last frame of your life all at once, that would be the perspective of a fifth dimensional being. And so now you can understand how challenging it is to be able to have a conversation with someone in a higher dimensional state, because they not only see the film strip of your life laid out before you, but they also see all the changes, because every decision that we make changes the script. Every decision that we make, every thought that we have, every new piece of information that we're exposed to changes the script. So you listening to this broadcast has literally changed and rewritten the future of your life and what you're going to experience. And this is the beauty of interaction. We are all affecting one another. We are all sending out ideas and energy and being affected by the energy and ideas that we receive and perceive. And this is what I was speaking about before. When you eat food and then you refine it as consciousness and you broadcast those thoughts back out into the world. I am very intentful about the thoughts that I broadcast back out into the world, because I am an artist painting the world with my mind, and I want to make a beautiful painting. On the topic of making beautiful paintings with our minds, I relocated here to California a little bit more than a year ago in order to have access to medical cannabis, and I'm so happy I can speak about this on the radio now without fear of oppression or persecution in any way. So cannabis is a transformative substance. It is a transformative sap is the best way that I can describe it. And one of the actions that it has as it transforms consciousness is a dissolving of boundaries. And cannabis exists right now for Earth surface human culture as a healing substance. And it is really necessary. It is available and popularized, and that people know about it and know how to use it, because it is not just that it must be used to heal the physical corporeal form. It needs to be used to heal the consciousness and the perception. So, first of all, I hope that I do not ruin your breakfast or whenever time of day you're listening to this by informing you that Fukushima is a worldwide, slow-motion, ecological disaster that could be the end of humanity or could cause or motivate humanity to reach the highest heights, and every possibility in between. Of the fifth dimensional uncollapsed waveforms that exist, there are every single different possibility, from humans becoming so diseased and degraded that you no longer even appear like humans, don't have reproduction, don't have an immune system. Basically all the nightmarish future dystopian realities where humans have to basically all be on technological life support. The surface of Earth, the biosphere, no longer is alive, and I would call that a nightmarish, horrific possibility. And then there is the other end of the spectrum, diametrically opposed to that, a world that we would call Edenic, the Garden of Eden, where humans, animal life, plant life, mineral life, and non-corporeal life all exist harmoniously on and interpenetrating Earth. So this means that, we have the Agarthans, these incredibly sophisticated beings who are maintaining the vibration or holding the space for what human consciousness should be. Guess what? You guys should all be 12-foot tall Olympian athletes who eat nothing but pure sunlight. And can you just imagine the type of culture that is created by beings at that level? You don't have to worry about subsistence farming, is the beginning of what I can say. When you don't have to worry about your food and where your food comes from, you get free in a lot of ways. You don't have to wake up in the morning and say, okay, what am I going to make for breakfast? You're eating sunlight for breakfast. You don't have to say, time for me to go out and till the fields or go to the grocery store. You just ingest sunlight. This is really freeing. It means that the people who live in that culture are able to focus on cultivating consciousness. The monks and the meditators in the Far East, but now throughout the entire world, these are beings who have created a bubble for themselves. The monastery is a bubble within which the inhabitants don't have to focus on the same secular needs and the drive for survival that ordinary folks, perhaps like you and I, have to focus on. Like, I am choosing to live within the secular world, not cloistered in a monastery, because I need to share a lot of information with people that I would not be able to do if I were sequestered from the rest of humanity. But we understand that some humans sequester themselves away in order to cultivate their energy. And boy, oh boy, it is a lot easier when you don't have to constantly be engaged in the hunt for resources and the fight for survival. So much of what the Agarthan culture is focused on is consciousness and the economy of ideas. It's a world where everybody has telepathy and everybody has a photographic memory. And the way that people eat, mostly, is by feeding each other through direct, what I would call neural transmission, or direct stimulation of the energy centers. So I might have spoken about this before, but man, oh man, my friend Ian, he made the best fried chicken that I have ever eaten at his holiday party several years ago. And I don't usually eat something like fried chicken. I usually eat a healthier style. But I said, if I am ever going to eat this, I'm going to eat it here and now, and I am going to remember it and record it for later, for playback later. Because he soaked it in buttermilk, did the perfect frying, he fried it in lard, it was wonderful. And so in Agartha and in the heavenly realms, people nourish each other by taking these perfect mental recordings and then sharing them with others or broadcasting it to others. And you're a very good chef if you're able to broadcast in great clarity of detail the experience of that food. So no chickens had to die so that I could, if we lived in Agartha, I would be able to broadcast the experience of eating that chicken, and no chickens would have to die. Only that original chicken had to die. This is the type of culture that they have. And broadcasting fried chicken is child's play. I want you now to do yoga of the perception, expand your imagination of what could be broadcast. Imagine a spectacle, but spectacle's not the right word because that has to do with what your eyes can see, but a spectacle for your entire senses, an artistic achievement of color, line, shape, form, taste, and sound, and experience that tells a story, uplifts, changes someone. These are what the Agarthan economy is based on. It's like music and art and poetry and nourishment and sex all wrapped up into one. That's an amazing world. Now let's contrast that with the barbarian culture that we currently find ourselves in. In this world, if I have more, first of all, kill or be killed, only the strong survive, and to the victor go the spoils. Hey, if I'm smarter than you, or faster than you, or stronger than you, I can take what you've got. I can take what exists. I can have as much as I want for me. I don't have to take a small amount and leave a little bit for you. I am here. The consciousness of the barbarian culture says, I am here to dominate. I am here to take as much as possible for me. Me, me, me. And this attitude comes out of boundaries and making this distinction of self versus other. So cannabis and other psychedelics cause a dissolution of boundaries. I bring up cannabis because right now, socially in Earth human culture, there is a revolution. For many years, the substance was prohibited, and I have characterized it as a transformative sap. That humans have created the set of boundaries that say, this is me and this is not me, and created a whole society based upon competition and taking all that you can for yourself. And in order to get to the next level, the next quantum of consciousness cultivation, it is necessary to move beyond self-serving and competition and move into serving the whole or cooperation. And the evolutionary biologist Bruce Lipton speaks all about this very beautifully. Look into his work if you can. I only have a few minutes here, which is why I'm picking up the pace and speaking very quickly. But basically, because of Fukushima and the slow motion ecological disaster and the increased incidence of cancer and major disease that is currently causing and will continue to cause until it is resolved, humanity is going to have to eat cannabis, both as a preventative measure and in order to therapeutically treat cancer. I have experienced, because I now live here in California and am active in the medical cannabis community, interacting with people who never would have exposed themselves to the substance of cannabis or THC because of the social stigma attached to it until they achieved a major disease. And then they began to saturate themselves on a cellular level with extremely high levels of THC because it is necessary to fight the cancer. And I've been watching the transformation in consciousness of some of these people. And I am relating that to an overarching change in the culture of North America, let's say, and hopefully soon to the planet, that cannabis is a mild psychedelic. It is not the same as something like dimethyltryptamine or peyote or psilocybe cubensis, the magic mushroom. In very low levels, cannabis has a mild psychedelic or boundary dissolving characteristic. But at the levels that it's necessary to take to fight cancer, like between 500 and 750 milligrams of THC per day, the experiencer begins to experience a transformation of consciousness and a dissolving of the boundary between self and other. And this is causing a consciousness revolution in our society. You will see a more compassionate society arise because humans on Earth's surface are having to eat this transformative sap just so that they do not die of cancer. And really, cancer arose and has arisen because of making this distinction and these boundaries, self versus other. Cancer really has arisen from cutting yourself off from the planet and other people, and it is a return to that sense of interconnectedness that is true healing. Thank you so much for being with me on this 1 hour's journey. Please continue to tune in to Birth of a New Dimension, where we are giving birth to a new level of consciousness. Thank you.